I think this is great, and I'm more convinced that when I that these are possible. I would like to introduce one other theme here that I feel like that was not present in this so much, and basically healing the need to. I want to speak up, I guess, for other species and the need for us to care not only for our own kind, but for the other kinds of life that we share the planet with, because I feel like, peace, as long as we're just focusing on humanity and seeking peace among humanity, that's great, but there's also, this planet isn't big enough for us to keep growing exponentially as humans, to keep taking over the planet, and part of what leads to some of our war is obviously competition over resources, which are finite, and it's having disastrous consequences on other parts of nature, other parts of the planet that impoverish all of us. And so I don't know, I feel like us maybe another way to live for greater peace is for all of us to seek ways to live lighter on the earth as well.
Absolutely.
I would like to tie to that is the universal education aspect that you mentioned as part of the prerequisite. Because I think without that, true education across all of us in the world, we will have those overpopulation issues and all that, right? Because it's been proven that sociologists have proved that wherever there is a lack of education, boom, overpopulation. So, and the planning, obviously, right? There has to be real educated planning to make that what Jessamine mentioned, to make sure we're all species, not just humans, but the whole Earth can survive.
Right, absolutely. So further, I wish my daughter was here. She'd be right behind you. She's just love. She's one of those. Goes out and works for, what is it called? What's the one that takes care of dogs
Humane
Humane Society. Yes, the Belmopan in Belize. She's out there. She's out there at 9, 10. She's out there doing things all the time. It's great. But you're absolutely right. And I think overall, though, the idea is that once you generate a lot of those good feelings about other people and what they're going through, how can you destroy someone else's environment when that means that their homes, their water, and everything else isn't going to be adequate? So it almost kind of falls in there. But I think you're absolutely right. It wouldn't be untoward to put that aspect of things in context of what we're talking about as well.
I really appreciated you kind of bringing the historical perspective and kind of what's happened, where we've been, and where we can go. And I feel like it's almost, for me, as a Baha'i, I've thought about world peace my whole life, and I believe in it. I've drank the Kool-Aid, believe it. But I think by the way you broke it down, it's like the recipe. We have the recipe, and you're basically you mix this with this and this and this mindset, institutions, all of that. And I just think, really it's about just continued efforts for the people, because it could be in 10 or 15 years that we see an evolution of this, similar to what you said about slavery. Who would have ever thought that would be gone one day, or that, and you see that even such a simple thing like shift of mindset. 10, 20 years ago, everybody was smoking everywhere.
Right.
And the other day we went out to yesterday, Panera or whatever, and there was a lady smoking, and she was literally outside. Outside.
Right.
And we were both like, someone's smoking. It was like killing somebody,
Right.
It was like, yeah, I think it's that lady. So then we're like, okay, she's smoking. And I thought, okay, she probably wants to, she needs to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
But you see how the mindset is shifted for all of us for such a simple thing. So I'm really encouraged, actually, and I really appreciate the time you took to really think through these things and present it in a way with the ingredients and the recipe. It's really, really encouraging. So thank you for doing that.
One of the things with this whole deal is that more times than not, I feel like almost when you do the work, you almost get more out of it than almost anybody else, right? And you're right. When I started putting this together, I hadn't quite thought about it the same way. Is that when you look at all these different institutions and all these different people working together, It's true. People really want to work together. It doesn't matter what country you're talking about. All people want to come together and work together because they realize at the end of the day, they may not want to give up so much national sovereignty and all this other type of stuff, but they want the benefits of working together. Even with this Brexit thing, do you think Britain want to give up the benefits of what they had? They don't want to give up those benefits because they realize those benefits are really, really nice. Be able to, capital flows, people flows, trade without barriers. All that other type of stuff is really nice. So I think at the end of the day, I have to believe that that's going to win out. People are going to look at it and say, boy, I don't want to give up some stuff, but I love what I'm getting on the other end. So, we'll see. I think there are going to be some challenges, but obviously, long run.
Along with that, I mentioned resources earlier, but it ties into the redistribution of wealth globally. Over the past 30, 40 years, the distribution of wealth has become more and more driven by a smaller and smaller group of individuals. And that's just not sustainable. I don't see getting to peace, because the more that becomes an issue, the more disruption we're going to have relative to peace or war.
Right.
So somehow, I think this addresses it almost, but some things you got to just sort of say out loud. Say this is an issue that inhibits a lot of that.
Well, has anybody heard any news reports about the distribution of wealth even in the United States?
Oh, yeah.
It's a recognized issue, right?
It's a problem.
So I think it's recognized. The issue is what do you do about it, right? That's the real tell. And I think that's the nut that we have to crack a little bit. I think the one thing that the writings definitely do offer in this area, there's two things I think it would offer to a certain degree. Is one, taking money from people usually isn't a good idea. Just going in there and say, okay, you got a lot, let me take it from you and give it to someone else. That idea probably isn't going to work. But it's clear that there's supposed to be, that everybody's not the same. If someone works really hard and puts in the time and they make special innovations, or maybe they should have a little bit more than someone else. So the idea is that the progression should be there at one point or another, but the distribution of that right now may not be quite as structured. Right, exactly. That's true. That's true. Right.
Starts with education or no education.
Right.
For example. So foundationally, if you don't have the tools to acquire wealth,
right,
then that inequity in distribution will always be there.
Right.
So how do you broaden the base of people who have the tools so that they can apply it? That's it. And I'm not suggesting we go take my money. I'm just kidding. But it's
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But it's all very complicated and overlapping, and because one thing that comes to my mind is that how much money influences elections, and decision makers are beholden to people who major corporations and people who have a lot of money, and therefore if they're elected, they have to do what's best for them.
Right.
Like tax cuts that benefit the wealthiest, things like that. So it's all, it's all related. It just piece it all apart.
Well, the thing is, I think it's true to a certain degree. It's all related in its solution to a degree as well. A lot of what we're talking about here, we talk about the equality of the races, equality of the sexes. Underlying all of that is, I'm concerned about you just like I'm concerned about myself.
Right.
And when we get to that level of concern, then that level of concern will influence money. So you even begin to see some of that right now, where you have people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett basically committing, saying, hey, when I die, 95% of my wealth is going to be going to charitable endeavors or whatever the deal is. There's definitely a move in some respects where people are beginning to take that view. And once that view becomes more prevalent, I think the distribution issues and other things will become a little bit easier. But it's not necessarily it's going to happen tomorrow.
Very wealthy people who said, look, I don't need another tax break.
Right.
They came out and said it.
Right. No, absolutely. So I think that's what we'll have to see. I mean, just on a personal level, I'm a big believer in efficiency. Sooner or later, efficiency always wins out. And if there's something that's inefficient, like taxes being given to only, and again, I don't want to say whether it's right or wrong or indifferent or whatever you believe, but if in a society money is inequitably given out, sooner or later, it's gonna become a problem. It's gonna become a sickness, and when the sickness gets bad enough, it's gonna need a solution, and the solution is gonna move us towards where it probably needs to be. I don't know when that day will come, but God willing, sooner rather than later.
So basically, everything sounds like has a simple solution, which is your shift of reference of mind, like Shola said, that we are all one, right? So your loss is my loss, your gain could be my gain, and we work like that. If that is true, that's the spirit of how we can all win. All win. Why is it so hard for humans to let go of the selfishness?
It's difficult because you have to develop capacity and qualities that some of us don't have. So and you don't have, so yeah, so and you know, this is such a wonderful concept. But you just think about a neighbor across the street who looks at you a certain way because they think you're a certain race or certain this or certain that. How do you overcome that? You gotta start there. Right. Gotta start there. I mean, I have neighbors that are, you know, this lady was saying she lives in a community, African-American female, and she said she knows how people look at her because it's a very upscale community, and she feels that. And that let's start there. Let's start with everyone looking at her like she belongs there, because she does belong there. So it's a small thing, but to Mehran's point, I think it's because everyone has personal work they got to do. Personal work that we have to do when we're uncomfortable with that situation or that bias or that prejudice. And once you do that, then it makes it, because you got to start there.
Right. And the nice thing about starting there is, as none of us are independent, right? If I change myself, that is got to have an influence on everybody around me and everybody I interact with. It may not change them totally, but it's going to have a little bit of an effect. And if they're affected a little bit, maybe they affect everybody else a little bit. So it's really, at the end of the day, if you're talking about actually doing something about it, none of us can wave a magic wand, but maybe we can make a difference in ourselves.
You're right, it is simple, but it is so complex.
Yeah, but I'm going to argue that it's not complex, because we can easily prove, scientifically, sociology can prove it, anthropology can prove it, that simple shift would benefit all.
Yeah, but I give
so the point I'm making is, why doesn't it happen? I guess I'm puzzled, and I'm throwing it out there because it puzzles me, you know? Because do you like to be angry, stressed out, selfish person? No one does.
Some people do.
Some people
they're addicted to it. They live in that place emotionally. Some people that live like that because they've been either hurt or injured or whatever. So they live there. So when they live there and we don't live there, potentially because we may have had, that's I think where the work is to look at someone who is hurting and hurting you and to say, it's got to be hard for you, but I'm here for you. I think that's the work. So it's hard work. I'm going to a coaching workshop for 3 days tomorrow. So I think I'm trying to mentally get ready. That's what that is.
I'm sorry. I just feel like, I mean, everyone says it. Love is much better than hate. Right. But that's as simple as that.
Well, I don't think everybody says that, because some people are not, they're in a position or in a place where maybe in their childhood there wasn't love, and they just never had that. And so as they grow, they see that, for me, the only one who's going to love me is me, and I don't care about anybody else. I only care about me, and they're selfish.
So may I say there's something lacking in the elementary and middle school education about this that might be the problem?
beyond that.
Sure.
I think it's going to be more
Beyond
than
that.
I think
Yeah.
it's deeper.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely deep.
Yeah.
Because human nature sounds like from day one wants to be.
But there's suffering, like there's injustice, there's
Yes,
poverty,
yeah.
all of those
Mm.
things grate on people from early
Yeah.
ages, and
Exactly.
if you haven't had the comfort or the leisure to consider some of these loftier ideals, then it's hard.
No, I agree. But even in that situation, right? Being part of that energy of love and oneness is going to make you feel better, even in that condition. Anyway.
If you get to
But
experience
there are
Yeah,
people
but-
who love making others feel bad. I mean,
That's
really.
true.
And
Yeah.
there's no cognitive dissonance for them.
Right, right, right.
You know, they are just perfectly happy making others miserable. And that's where they live.
Especially if it makes them
Yeah.
better off or
Yeah,
whatever. They're
and-
making
yeah,
money or whatever
yeah,
the
they're
deal
making-
is.
Whatever it is that they're getting out of it, they're getting out of it. There's no motivation to change.
No motivation. Right. That's
No
that's
motivation to
probably the
change.
case.
So if you're happy in your
No
state, then how does that get disrupted? So that you now want to do something different.
No motivation is the key. I think.
That's what I was saying about this conception of what it means to be a man, because capitalism, competition, pushing your point of view on an environment so that you get what you want,
Right.
because I'm not going to design a system that makes me lose.
Right, right.
So if I'm going to push something, I'm going to push something that makes me win. And it's up to you to push on what you think is going
Right.
to make you win. Well,
Right.
there we are in this competition, limiting the results, going to the lowest common denominator and breaking apart unity. But if you reconceive how things are done, and you come another way at it, and you define success another way, you broaden this issue of how things work, and everyone wins more. But you have to change what men think is normal.
Okay, I know
Go with
this.
it.
So the basic idea is, I think it goes back to the beginning. We get like-minded people together, share ideas, hopefully get some type of concept of ways of moving forward. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Good. And,